Okay, well, good morning, all. Thank you very much for joining us today. So, today we're going to be speaking about specialized fire alarm tools. Do want to mention one thing. We did the same presentation in Spanish. It is recorded and it's on the Full Protection website in case you want to see that as well. But today our presentation is in English, so welcome. The installation of fire alarm equipment is a noble cause. The reason is because it's designed to save lives. And you do that by detecting rapidly a fire. But the installation of a fire detection system is just the beginning. Because NFPA 72 in particular, talks about the timing, the frequency that should be done for testing and inspection. We're going to talk about that today. So my name is Walter Harries. The company is International W. We are regional manufacturers representatives for SDI in Latin America and the Caribbean. SDI is that factory I've been talking about. They design and manufacture specialized tools to help you do your job better. So I already mentioned that the installation of an alarm is merely the beginning. There should be steps later on. As a matter of fact, you can find those steps in NFPA 72, Chapter 14. It's listed right there on your screen. They talk about which inspection should be done, which testing should be done, and how often it should be done. So there's reasons that they make these suggestions. One, because you want to ensure that the fire alarm is working correctly. I mean, there's different reasons why it might not. Maybe it's dirty. Maybe some other trade cut a wire. Perhaps somebody installed something incorrectly. The sensitivity of a detector has changed over time. But the focus there is to save lives. And while we're doing that, we're also protecting property. You know that I think it's about 50% of businesses that have fires never reopen. So, if we can get to that fire quickly, get people out and put out the fire, we're doing a great job. One last item I think it's worth mentioning is the recurring revenue that comes with inspections and testing. It just makes good sense. It's good business. But sometimes those contracts are hard to get because, listen, if you have to do inspections on what? 400 or 500 smoke detectors, it's going to take a while. And you have to charge for that. But if if SDI can begin to bring down those costs, now you're going to be more competitive. You'll be able to offer something more attractive to your customers. So the tests. Actually, there's two tests. One is functionality. And basically what we need to do is make sure the detector functions. So you do that by introducing a smoke, if you will, into the smoke detector to make sure that it detects and generates an alarm. Now, in the past, there have been certain brands where they allow you to put a magnet close to the detector and that will put it into alarm. That's not a functional test. And that's not recognized by NFPA. Okay, it just proves that you can flip a switch and go into alarm, not that it has detected something. The other test is a sensibility test, and that's to make sure that the smoke detectors are in the range that the manufacturer has specified. You'll see it on a spec, how many particles per 1,000 or per inch or however they measure it is when they start to detect and report an alarm. Where I see this more often than not will be maritime. And of course, I understand that. If you're in the middle of the ocean, you have a fire, you want to put it out as quickly as possible because you have nowhere to go. Another place where we often see it is going to be in mining. Apparently, there's some very stringent regulations. So these people always want to make sure that their fire detector, their smoke detector is detecting the way it's supposed to. So the way that SDI is going to reduce these costs, they're going to help you do the inspections or the testing on smoke detectors, heat detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, aspiration detectors. But aside from all those detectors, also things like battery health, very important. Now, I didn't say if the battery's producing 12 volts. We're going to get into that in a little bit. But the health, the useful life of a battery. as well as appliances for measuring sound, for measuring intelligibility. Now, the way that SDI does this, basically there's three facets to what they offer. Number one, a dispenser head, and you're seeing small pictures there on your screen of the variety of dispenser heads that we offer. And I'll go into each one so you can understand it a little better. Number two, and this one's really important because this is what helps bring down those costs, the telescoping poles. I mean, the fact, and we're going to talk about it later, but the idea that a technician can access, remove, test a smoke detector up to 9 meters without scaffolding, without a ladder, without electric lifts, without 5 people having to do that job is pretty awesome and the cost savings. And the last thing, of course, are those consumables. You know, we did speak about the smoke. And in this case, that smoke should be UL listed, which it is. Should be free from silicone, which it is. And, well, you're going to use it up as you use it with detectors. So you're going to have to buy that again. So dispenser heads, one very typical, left-hand side, the 330. This one accepts aerosol cans. So you unscrew the bottom, put in that can, reattach the bottom of it. And now when you go up to that smoke detector and put light pressure on it, you're going to dispense smoke. And that goes into the smoke detector. It works with products like A10. You're going to see that in a second. C6, that's carbon monoxide, should that be important for you. And another product called M8. But we're going to show you photos of that in a second. In the middle, heat detectors. You know, the NFPA is specific. Not only do you have to test the smoke detector, but the heat detector. So you're going to do that with heat. And this goes over the detector, whether it's a standalone heat stat or whether it is part of a smoke detector. It will send in heat from different sides so that it heats up quickly and uniformly and goes into alarm. And a lot of people like the one on the far right because this is a device that does all of the tests. It can work with smoke detectors. It works with heat detectors. And there's also a model where you can ask that it include carbon monoxide detectors. This product's kind of unique because instead of using those aerosol cans, it uses cartridges. So cartridges not under pressure, very small, easy to store, and very efficient. So, you know, we talked about the maintenance, the inspection of alarms. You know, the smoke detectors, and you know better than I do, they get dirty. You know, there's ambient dust. Depending on how dirty the place of installation is, they can get dirty pretty quickly. And that should be cleaned. Insects kind of like to build their little homes inside those smoke detectors whenever possible. So far left-hand side, a device that's made to help you remove that smoke detector. Now you see those two sort of triangles on the top, they change position. And each time they change position, the diameter changes. So this allows you to remove almost any smoke detector on the market. You heard that I said almost any. In the middle, a couple of years ago, Edwards made a series of smoke detector, had a button in the side. And in order to remove it, by turning it, you had to hit that button first. Well, they made their own remover. You can see a picture of it right there. Well, what SDI did is we made an adapter so you could put the Edwards remover right on top of our telescoping poles. So something to consider if you still have some of those detectors out there. And after you do remove that smoke head, you know, right-hand side, we're looking at two compressed airs. We're going to speak about that in a bit on a separate slide. But the idea of cleaning it efficiently, quickly. I know that some people will use a compressor, and what's been reported back to me is those compressors often put humidity, dampness into that compressed air. Sometimes what comes out is actually dirtier than what they're trying to clean. So be careful with that, but here's a solution for you. Two different models. One is non-flammable, and we'll talk about that. So that was one of the tests. Now we're talking about the sensibility test. Totally different device, totally different can of smoke. And this one will make sure that your detector is in that range that the manufacturer says it's supposed to be. Oh, by the way, on that sensitivity test, NFPA mentions that it should be done the year of the install and every 2 years after that. Eventually, it tapers off. So another dispenser head, and this one I call the intelligent one. The reason it's intelligent is the other dispenser heads really rely on the technician to apply the right amount of smoke. And although, I've run into people who sometimes say that they apply a lot of smoke to those smoke detectors. I should tell you right now, for you folks that use the product, the rule is a 1 second blast and then wait. Let that register with the detector. Wait about 10 seconds. Now, when I say 1 second, we're talking, that's 1 second. We're not writing graffiti here. We're not writing our name. That's way too long. I'll have people who apply smoke until the panel goes in alarm. Wrong. Number one, you're wasting product. And number two, you're probably causing too much residual buildup. So remember that rule about just apply 1 second, wait for 10 seconds, then apply it another one if you need it. There's different reasons why that can happen. Now, this one you're looking at here is an intelligent detector dispenser. It uses cartridges. And I should mention the advantage of having a cartridge is they're not considered hazmat. If you have to go to a different town to do a fire inspection or fire testing, you can't really bring an aerosol can on an airplane. But a cartridge does not have that problem. So they're small, easy to pack, and easy to travel with. So as soon as you put this detector over this dispenser over a smoke detector, it senses that because there's a proximity sensor, and it will release the correct amount of smoke from separate sides so that it gets into the detector quickly and efficiently. You lower it and raise it again, and now a little fan will clean out that smoke because you don't want it to continue to go into alarm, right? You want to do the test and move on to the next smoke detector. One thing that I do like about this one is that it has an adapter, and that adapter is made so you can use it with aspiration detectors. So that aspiration detector is, for the folks of you who do install it, you've seen from the instructions that they give you, you're really supposed to do that testing from the perforation, the hole and the tubing farthest away from the, I'll call it the detector. You're supposed to measure the amount of time it takes for that smoke to reach. Well, yeah, I kind of understand that because, that tubing could have gotten blocked. Maybe animals are building little nests in there. Who knows? So it's one of the things you should do. But here's a nice, easy way for you to do your testing for aspiration detectors. And my favorite part, quite honestly, because I think this is the real money saver for you folks, are the telescoping poles. Now, we have a series of poles because people have different environments they're going to work in. I guess the original one is that model on the left. You're looking at the 100. It's about a little bit more than a meter, but it will extend to 4.5 meters just by itself. If you need more than that, you can use some of the extensions. That's the next model you're looking at, the 101. As a matter of fact, you can put 3 of those extensions on. So now, plus the height of the technician, you can reach those detectors up to 9 meters. The next one below it, the 108, as you see, it doesn't extend as much, but hey, maybe that's your environment. Maybe you do a lot of hotel work and most ceilings are not that high. You also have the advantage of adding those 101s, those extensions, if you want to give you more height. And the last 2, that comes with one of the kits. And you'll see that at the end, a little backpack that has everything in it, including a shorter extending pole, as well as extensions that you can use with it. So we spoke about that aerosol. Let me take a step back. On the left-hand side, you're looking at the Centurion. That can be used by hand, or it can be used with a dispenser. All right. In the middle, this one cannot be used with a dispenser. It can only be used by hand. People like it because, number one, it will not operate unless that sort of funnel is fully extended. That means that the technician cannot get too close to the detector. That's another thing. We don't want to be right up to the detector when we're applying that smoke. We want to be about 10 inches away, 12 inches. And this will not operate unless that funnel is fully extended. And people like it for that reason. On the right, another can be used by hand, can be used with a dispenser. What's the difference? This one is non-flammable. Certain environments, that's what they need. All these are UL listed. None of them have silicone because you do have to be UL listed in order to use this on a fire alarm, and we are. The compressed air, I mentioned that. Difference in models is that one is non-flammable for those type of environments. But here's a nice way to remove that smoke detector, lower it, clean it out, get it back up there, and then do your testing. Carbon monoxide, more and more popular. You know, one thing I should mention here is that there's not enough carbon monoxide in this can to harm the technician. Important. Number two, your detector needs the ability to go into something called fast mode. All right, and that's a fast detect mode. And I mention that because some of the brands out there do not offer that. And you're going to have a very difficult time putting that thing into alarm. But we're seeing it more in parking lots, any place where there are automobiles, sometimes burners, where they need to do the testing. They want to make sure that that carbon monoxide tester is in fact working. One very common question, people want to know, hey, how many detectors can I test with your products? And the answer is, I don't know. And the reason the answer is, I don't know, because I don't know how you're using the product. You know, I gave the example of the technician that sprayed and sprayed and sprayed until he finally went into alarm, and that's a waste of product. So what I can tell you is how many blasts I can get out of a canister, an aerosol, or a cartridge, and you're looking at that information here. Aside from that, silicone-free, very important. UL listed, very important. And here's a good example of those cartridges. One of the cartridges, one on the left, is used for that intelligent dispenser, the 365 that I mentioned. And they're sold in packs of 6, just so you know. On the other side, these are used for testifier. Testifier was that product that can do all the testing simultaneously. So it can do smoke detectors, heat detectors, carbon monoxide. And there's different cartridges, one for smoke, one for carbon monoxide. Okay, enough about detectors. NFPA 72 goes on. There's other things you're supposed to test. And one of them is intelligibility. You have a voice evac system. You want to make sure that people understand the message. We've all been into either a train station, a bus station, an airport, when they make an announcement and we don't understand anything. So intelligibility is not a vague concept. It's something that's real and something that you can measure. And this gives you an idea. Our equipment, when you measure that, will give you a numerical readout. STI, or speech transmission index, what we're going to call intelligibility, our ability to understand a message, is a number between 0 and 1. The higher the number, as you can see from the chart there, the better the intelligibility. So SDI offers this model here, the SM50, and it analyzes speech. It looks at different facets, whether it's echo, collision, over several octaves, if you will. It's an ANSI approved device. You know, NFPA is pretty rigid in suggesting that the devices are, it's not any old device, it's a device, in this case, ANSI approved. We are. Has a touch screen, easy to use. So if that's your market, now you have a way of testing that. Oh, I did mention the cell checker. So cell checker is good as a gel cell, a lead acid battery doesn't really give you warning when it's going to fail. It just fails. And Murphy's Law is it fails when you need it to work. Can't measure that with a multimeter because that's just going to tell you 12 volts. And okay, seems to be good. Cell checker measures the internal resistance. It puts a load on the battery, and that's what it measures. Incidentally, the way this device works is exactly the way NFPA says you need to measure your batteries. So different selection of batteries, as you can see, anywhere from 2 to 12 volts. 12 volts is probably the common one that we're dealing with here. And easy to use, hook it up, press the on button. It does its testing, and then it's going to give you a LED readout. If it's in the green section, you're good to go. You still have useful life. If it's in the red section, even though you think the battery is good, it's time to replace it. Scorpion. Yeah, Scorpion's a very interesting product. We spoke about doing that testing with dispensers, with aerosols, whether they're cartridges or cans. And we can get to most of the detectors like this. However, there is a series of detectors that just are difficult to access. One good example, in a high-rise building, you're supposed to put a smoke detector on top of that elevator, not in the cab, but on the very top of the shaft. Well, how do you test that? Not easy. Well, you have to invite a couple engineers from the elevator company. You have to stop service. You have to get on top of the car and then go up and do your testing there. So time-consuming and money-consuming. Stairwells, stair goes down, the other ceiling goes up, and usually there's an architect that says, wow, wouldn't it be nice to have a smoke detector right up there? And unfortunately, in order to get there for testing purposes, what do you have to do? Build a scaffold, maybe get an electric lift. And we're talking time and money. And part of the goal here is not only to do things right and professional, but by the same token, do it quickly and efficiently. Last item of hard to access detectors are restricted areas. Could be operating rooms in hospitals or pharmacies or certain people's offices, military bases. They don't just let you walk around. You have to be accompanied by somebody. And many times you're sitting outside waiting for that somebody to arrive. Losing time, losing money. So those three situations, what can we do? Well, here's Scorpion. Scorpion is a product that's installed right next to the detector. In the case of a point detector, like a photoelectric, the white one on the bottom, well, you're going to put it right next to it. If we're talking aspiration tubing, you hook it onto the tubing. Now you're going to wire that device back to a remote console. You have the option of a separate console for each detector head, each Scorpion, or one that can handle up to 8. The technician comes along. Oh, by the way, I should mention that these remote panels, remote access panels, are located in a very easy to get to area. They're outside that restricted area. Technician comes up, he hooks on his tester, he generates smoke from that device that's next to the smoke detector, generates alarm, and moves on to the next one. And that's Scorpion product. Everyday product? Probably not, but good to know that it exists. Because once again, you probably have crossed paths with those situations where it's not so easy to get to a detector and you've lost time and money. NFPA goes on. I mean, you're supposed to have a log of installed software and firmware, and some companies are going to want to hold you to that. So we have also offer the cabinets that are used for those maintenance records. And for the plans, if they want plans of the fire alarm, of escape routes, and the list goes on, there's also a fire plan cabinet. So if you have that kind of multinational who wants to have these items, then you know where to come here at Full Protection to get that. So, all this time we're talking cost of maintenance, and one of the costs of maintenance happens to be accidents, because there's always pressure to get the job done. Now, I'm sure none of you do anything like our champions in this slide, but it does happen, and that becomes part of your cost. So something to think about: if we can eliminate that with our telescoping poles, dispenser heads, and UL listed smoke in a can, if you will, then it makes perfect sense. Another thing is the interruption. Yeah, you could schedule a job on weekends or nights, but you're paying somebody extra to do it. You want to charge the end user for that, as you should, but that could put your number a little bit above and beyond what he wants to spend. So the idea that you can very easily get to detectors, one person, not necessarily have to take people out of their seats away from their job while you do yours, because that's going to be another cost of maintenance you should take into account. So much of the business is based on referrals, so we do want happy customers at that. So compare all those different costs we talked about with the technician taking a bus, a subway, with his dispenser head, telescoping poles, everything he needs. Something that he could even use in more refined places, as you're looking at that picture on the left-hand side. Single technician can remove that smoke detector, take it down, blow it out with one of those compressed air products, put it back up, do his testing. So I did mention kits, and there's many of them. By the way, one of the things we will be sending you at the end of this is a link to the catalog online, so you can see some of these products and make your choice. But I did want to point out several, because oftentimes people don't know where to start. So these kits were put together not only to give you everything you need, but the carrying cases so that equipment doesn't get misplaced. This is one that I mentioned earlier. It's that backpack. It comes with that intelligent dispenser head, the poles you need. And if you decide to go and invest in other pieces, you can also put them in there. Easy to travel with, easy to get the job done. This one, a little bigger, also includes more poles, includes the remover. But those are just some of the kits that I wanted to point out to you. There's many more. I'm sure there's one designed just for your needs. Oh, while we're on the subject of fire, one of the things I do like to mention is sometimes you're protecting larger buildings. I mean, massive warehouses, distribution centers. And if they want voice evac, I'm not talking sirens, they need voice evac, then you have to put in many, many speakers. Cost goes up. So Hyperspike is a brand, totally different brand, but I did want to mention it, who make unique speakers, extra powerful, that can reduce costs because you install less of them. This one we're looking at here, just to give you an idea, a single speaker could cover about 170,000 square feet. You can imagine one drop, because it's a 360-degree speaker, as opposed to speakers all over the place, certainly can save money. Equally important, this product called the TCPA 10UL, and by the way, I should mention they are UL for using with your voice evac panels. And you can see the taps. I mean, at a 4-watt tap, it's already giving you 129 dB. And you can see the projection area that you can get out of it. So very nice way to cover bigger expanses, as I said, those distribution centers, warehouses, etc. And that's it. That is our presentation for today. So this this webinar has been recorded. It'll be on the Full Protection site. Please let your the other workers in the company know about this. That way they can see some of this information. Hopefully it's helpful. You have my contact information, or the folks at Full Protection, if you need more information about any of these products. So thank you very much.